Opening slide, graphic, text, Introduction to Self-Management, Part 2, Things to Consider, with Deb Rouget and Teresa Micallef. Logos, Belonging Matters, NDIS, talksthatmatter.net.
So just a few responsibilities of self-managing. The NDIA would like you to purchase supports in line with your goals in your NDIS plan. Now, I think you get to say about 5 goals. Teresa's going to do a bit on this a little bit further on in the session. Now, Emily, you would have seen, had lots of goals in her life because it was really hard when the circle worked for her to name 5 goals. She has in her NDIS plan, but in reality, she actually has a lot of goals. And as Jane showed on a couple of slides, there were a lot of goals in her life that she wants to achieve, actually, or she wants support with. Another responsibility is that you managing your funding, getting that good value for money, and it needs to be within your budget. So I suspect that might be where a claim might be rejected if you've overspent on your budget. So some of those tracking things that Jane spoke about, so a spreadsheet might be handy, but the NDIA portal does give good graphs and reports about where you are with your money, so you might just want to track that. You don't really want to spend all of your money in the first quarter and have nothing left for the end of the year. Claiming, and you need to be able to claim and pay for your supports by making payment requests, which Jane spoke about. You need to pay your supports on time, particularly when you're involved with paying salaries. You don't want people's, waiting for their wage because it could have an impact on their livelihood, for example. And you need to keep invoices and receipts. Now, you might be super organised and be the best filer in the world, or you might just put them in a folder and keep them in a year batch, and file them in your filing cabinet. And you need to keep them. We had this question this morning for the NDIA wants you to keep those for 5 years. Just to keep a record of those things. Now, some people get frightened off from self-management by the idea of the NDIA doing an audit. My understanding is that auditing can be random. They may audit if they think that there's a problem with the use of funds. But I was talking to someone from the NDIA, and they were saying that usually what they do is they'll pick one line item and follow it through. So if you've kept all your invoices and receipts, you should be fine. So I would just try not to be too scared about that. It is taxpayers' money, that you're using. So this is why sometimes auditing might be required as well. You need to make clear agreements with your providers. So, Jane was talking about they use HireUp, which is an online employment portal. So you want to know, how they employ support workers, how they're paid for, and those types of things. And if you're employing your staff directly, you need to meet employer obligations. So, paying the award wage, paying super, work cover, all of those types of things. Now, this is why a lot of people don't want to get into that piece of employing workers directly. They might use HireUp or Mabel or some sort of, they may have an agreement with a provider to employ their workers. So you want to think that piece through. Some people employ workers through an ABN, but we're going to talk more about this next Tuesday. So if you tune in, then we'll be going into that in more detail. And you need to really, when you go to the review, just be able to say how your funding was used to reach the goals in the plan. You need to be advise the NDIA of any significant changes. So, if you're unable to meet your responsibilities or you had ill health and you couldn't self-manage, anymore, and participate in any auditing, which we've already spoken about. Okay, so what can you buy? So you can buy supports related to your goals and disability that are reasonably priced and good value for money, that you can afford within your budget, that connects you within the community, improves your relationships. Support that's not provided by any other government department, so health or dental or these types of things. Now, there are some blurring of the lines on some of this, so we would suggest, you know, if you had a bit of an overlap because of your disability, that you talk to your planner about those types of things as well. The NDIA stipulates that NDIS funds shouldn't be contributing to day-to-day living costs that everybody else would be paying for. Once again, there could be some grey areas in this, and I talk to your planner because some people may have, you know, increased expenses on some items because it's related to their disability. And support, of course, that's safe and legal. So all of this information actually is drawn from that NDIS website and the self-management guide as well. Okay, so just a little bit more on the how of managing your funding we really suggest that you research and consider your options. So on the NDIA website, you'll find a stack of information. There's a lot of providers that put out information around self-management as well. So have a look at that material. If you just put it in your Google and do some research as well. The other thing I would highly recommend is talking to other parents, because that way you'll really get to kick the tires on it and see whether it's suitable for you. And just remember, you don't have to manage all of it. You could manage a small part of it just to start with and try it to see whether, you know, it fits for you and your lifestyle. The other thing, and Jane mentioned this, was at the planning meeting, you need to, or the LAC or NDIA planner will ask you how you want to manage your funds, and this is where you need to let them know. Now, occasionally, we have had planners that have tried to talk people out of self-managing, and I don't think that that's fair that people make that decision for people. So if you really want to self-manage, do your research, feel confident about your decision and ask them for some support. You know, this is really important. It's part of helping our son or daughter have good, creative, flexible support. So you may have to stand your ground there and inform the planner that that's what you want to do. So the next section is just some support or resources you might be able to tap into to self-manage. So just remember, you can still self-manage your funding even if you need some help to do that. Ask your LAC or NDIA planner. Some of the savings you can create can also be used to buy support to help you to self-manage. So, you know, Jane keeps all of her accounts and books and these types of things. You could employ a bookkeeper and just bundle it all up in a shoebox and chuff it off to them once a fortnight or once a month and these types of things. Just as an example, Belonging Matters is a small organisation. We have a bookkeeper come in to run all our HR, payroll, accounts for 3 hours every 2 weeks. So for one person, I could imagine that wouldn't quite be as much. You might be able to pay for recruitment services and any software applications that you might find useful. Another resource I would really recommend is we had Marita Walker from the NDIA present a couple of years ago. Go to Talks That Matter. Her presentations are there. It'll give you more detail. She is an authority and expert on this area, and there's quite a lot of little video clips you can watch to get some more information. The other resource is the Workforce Innovation in Self-Managed Supports. Morgan's video, we filmed that for this project, which was a project of the National Alliance of Capacity Building Organisations. And we created this website or resource, www.selfmanagesupports.org.au. And you can go there, you'll find stories, you'll find tips and traps, and some research that was actually conducted as well. Now, don't worry about getting all this information down. We'll send you the PowerPoints afterwards. And this is this is a really good thing to have, the NDIS Guide to Self-Management. It's like from the horse's mouth. And so if you're in a planning meeting and someone, an LAC or someone's trying to talk you out of self-management, you can certainly refer to the NDIS guide. There's some good tips in that as well. It's available on the NDIS website. You should be able to pick it up from LAC or offices as well.
Closing slide, graphic, text. This video was made possible with the support of the National Disability Agency grant, produced by Belonging Matters. Belonging Matters makes every effort to provide accurate and up-to-date material. However, information is subject to change and our material is for reference only. We recommend speaking to the NDIS, your LAC or planner for up-to-date or additional information. Logos, NDIS, Belonging Matters, talksthatmatter.net.